I'm media, I'm not hurting anybody. Hey, I'm media.
That's journalist James Klug. He got caught right there. Some people chasing him. Luckily, he made it out okay. He joins us now to talk about the experience. That looked really scary, James.
Yeah, it was. And thanks for having me on, Bob. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So I spent the night, obviously, recording the rioting, the looting, everything that's going on. I mean, surrounding me, there's gunshots in the distance. Thankfully, nothing close to me. There's cars going through parking lots, hitting each other, people showing up in basically caravans, going into businesses, running out with thousands of dollars of items. And in that specific case, I was recording a Five Below store, and they saw me recording. And I keep it pretty low key, but he caught me, and he started chasing after me. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever run or ran. I don't think I've ever ran so fast or run so fast in my life. I mean, it was terrifying.
I'm glad you were able to get away, but let's put this in context also. You weren't doing anything wrong. They were.
Correct. I mean, I guess apparently people don't enjoy it when you film them doing something incredibly illegal. And absolutely, I was not doing anything wrong. I didn't say anything to anybody. In fact, I was there for maybe 5 seconds, got a video, and he caught me and I ran away. And I had multiple people chasing me as well.
What do most people think about that? Because regardless of what you think about that gentleman being shot with a knife, by the way, coming toward them, regardless of whether you think that was the right thing to do or not, it leads to riots. It leads to looting. The people that you talk to in Philadelphia, how did the general population, how do they feel about this?
The general population has absolutely no clue that he was an armed individual and he was shot by police. Yes. I mean, really, we can boil this down to poor reporting on the media's part. Just saying that a black man was shot by a police officer. Many people have been leaving out the fact that he was armed with a knife. And, that's what escalates these situations. People get out there because they believe that there was an injustice here.
Yeah, and other people were in danger as well as the cops. And he didn't stop when they told him to stop, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I mean, if you look at the video, most people that see the video are like, okay, I mean, there was a few chances there to drop the weapon, not go after the officer, et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, he did not do that in this case. Yeah,
the last thing I'm going to do with a knife in my hand is go toward officers. So tell me what else you saw as far as the rioting and looting was concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was one of the worst nights I've seen of looting. I mean, we're talking me walking into a Walmart just to get some footage and seeing maybe hundreds to maybe thousands of people going in and out. And there was no National Guard to be found. There was no officers to be found. Right. The parking lot was completely packed, filled with looters that were pulling up in their cars. They even had their license plates on, pulling up in their cars, getting out, running into the store, taking whatever they wanted, and getting to their car and driving off. And the parking lots were incredibly dangerous. Cars were hitting each other. There was a pickup truck that was hit and flipped over. Again, you can hear gunshots in the distance. Last night alone, there were 11 people shot, including a 15-year-old girl. Oh my. This was absolute lawlessness.
Yeah. Let's open it up to our panel here. Amanda, did you have a question?
I think it's fascinating that all we have been hearing is that there's mental health, the mental health of the individual who lunged or went forward towards the police. And so I think it's fascinating what you're saying, that they actually, people around there don't know that he was armed. What are you hearing on that? Are they talking a lot about mental health as well? Because I wonder if they're trying to kind of talk about that as well, with this being an unarmed individual.
You do hear talk of mental health. I do think that a lot of people kind of just repeat that talking point, but don't really understand where to go from there, right? What do? Do we send in a social worker into a situation where there's a man with a knife that's that's chasing you or approaching you. So you do hear people talk about that. Most of them don't have much of a plan. If you kind of dig into, okay, what do you recommend?
Yeah.
If it is mental health, what do we recommend doing?
Yeah, Ford, did you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think Amanda makes a great point about what seems to be purposeful media intentions about leaving out the weapon. My question is a much bigger one, and I'm going to play the village idiot here. And that is, does anyone ask how rioting and looting is going to lead to better policing in Philadelphia? Because apparently rioting seems to be always the response, but then nothing ever happens on either side. And yet people say that this is a good thing to do.
Yeah, and I'll let Pastor Scott answer that and ask a question if he wants to, because we all know that that doesn't lead to the solution. Pastor, I mean, we're seeing this throughout the country. When you get peaceful protests and they don't stay peaceful, they turn into looting and rioting, and I think the message gets lost right at that point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I really don't think whether he was armed or unarmed makes much of a difference. The fact that a black man was killed by police gave them an occasion to do what was in their heart anyway. There's always a criminal, sinister element in society that seeks any type of justification or provocation to carry out their criminal intent. You know, and I don't really think these were ever peaceful protests. It's just like, a black guy got killed. Let's burn up, let's tear up, and let's steal. And as a result, they were going to use, if he'd have been punched in the face by the police, they'd have been tearing up anything. Right. He'd have been arrested and they'd said, you know, it was an improper arrest. They would have found a reason to do it. And even with the mental health issue, to me, the subject of mental health is actually the question of, does this person understand the difference between right and wrong? Yeah. Does he understand the commands that are given to him? And in most cases, they are able to understand the difference between right and wrong. Yeah. They do understand the command. They do know that they should obey that command, and they choose not to.
Right, and that's
so
also
oftentimes, you know, and I'm being honest, I have family members that are mentally impaired because of prior drug use, but it does not take away their ability to know right from wrong.
Right.
And to understand that the police are the authority figures and that you are to obey their lawful commands.
Yeah, James, I'm glad you came out of this okay. Any final thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, I mean, obviously at the forefront of this is the anti-police movement. And I totally agree. I think it doesn't matter if he was armed or unarmed. People were going to do this anyways. Yeah. And I think many of your viewers would agree that this absolutely, this anti-police movement, this rioting, this looting, this constant reaction to anything that officers do, it absolutely needs to stop.
Well, be careful, and you got the heart of a journalist to go in there, and you got the legs of a sprinter. So it works out okay. Thank you so much, James Klug, and keep it here on Newsmax, folks.